Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a GeekVerse review. I'm saying that because I don't know what episode number we're on. I think last week was 386 with Spider-Man. I think this is 387, somewhere there. We're 480. I don't know. I'm gonna look it up after I introduce Kirklin Patzer. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are about to. Obviously, we did the retrospective for this film series, but I think I'm just still kind of amazed that we're about to review and talk about a new Matrix. Doesn't feel real. This whole past month does not feel real, the things we've got. Some stuff from Marvel, Disney Plus, No Way Home, and now this. It's been a great time, but I'm joined by
the sentient Kirklin Patzer.
There we go. How you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing good. I'm glad I made this one. Kind of breaking the fourth wall, but if you guys tuned into our finale for Hawkeye, I unfortunately missed that one because the Mr. Sandman just claimed me, and I wasn't able to stay awake, unfortunately. And I was so bitter. Because I actually really like the finale. I haven't heard your guys' review at the point of this recording, so I'm excited to hear your guys' thoughts. We talked a little bit off cast, but no, I'm just glad to be here. And like you said, it's a weird time, just in the world in general right now. But we got Spider-Man. I won't make any statements, but crazy
that
that's
any more movies after Spider-Man. They could say they're done making movies for 10 years, and I'd be happy. I'd be fine. Like, well, I got Spider-Man to keep watching.
No, exactly.
Good,
and yeah, Matrix is back. It's what year? What decade is it? Early 2000s? What's going on? It's strange times.
It's a hell decade so far. But yeah, we are about to talk about Matrix. This is episode 438. That's our 39, actually. Sorry, I'm screwing it all up. But yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, go head down to the links below if you like what we do. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, because Spotify now, you can give us a review. But wherever you listen, we appreciate a review. If you really, really want to support us, if you want to create more content, because that's how we did the Matrix retrospective. That's how we did Eyes Wide Shut, which is going to release in a few days. That's how we're going to be doing the other retros that are coming up is Patreon. Go over and support us there, because the more you support us, the more content you get. Lots of tiers there, ad-free, a tier just to support, of course, exclusive early episodes, updates, behind the scenes things. So go do that. We thank you everyone that's been joining us for this year, because this is not our last news or not our last cast of the year, but this is our last Christmas one, everything like that. So a big thank you to all the patrons and listeners, but especially patrons, because you guys are giving us your hard-earned money to create more content. So we really appreciate that. And a big old Merry Christmas to you and everyone that's listening. It's been a great year. I'm very excited. At the end of the year, we'll talk about some of the Spider-Man records and stuff like that. But yeah, we have lots of stuff. We did Hawkeye, as Kirk said, he missed that, but we did our weekly Hawkeye reviews. So if you haven't watched them, you can go back, and we reviewed every single episode, as we just talked about. Spider-Man No Way Home, breaking tons of records for us, as long as also with the box office as well. So go and check out that, one of our biggest episodes of all time. So that's in the feed down below. Now there is a Doctor Strange trailer. It is out, and we put up the cutout of when we talked about the trailer. So there's that. So just head over to the feed down below, our video and audio, everywhere you can find us. And if you're wondering too, what did you guys think of the original Matrix retros or Matrix films? We're not going to do the whole like, oh, this is where I was, this is where, because we just did a retrospective. We did Matrix, Reloaded, and Revolution. So you want our thoughts, go there. There's a bunch of casts on that. And yeah, I am ready to talk about this. So Kirklin Patzer, we haven't even given a little glimpse of what we each other thought. Even Taylor was like, oh, this is going to be an interesting review. Funny enough that he's not here. So this is just a sign that I'm probably either going to fall asleep for Dexter or Boba next week, because Boba could be boring as shit. And I guarantee that could be a Kirklin Taylor Patzer cast. So we'll see if it follows. But yeah, there you go. Boba Fett's coming up. There you go. Yeah. We'll review The Witcher in 2024. Have you even watched an episode?
Shay and I have seen the first one now. We watched it just today. It was I really like it. I was
shit.
I don't even know if I shared my opinion on the first season. You did the review there, I think solo, if I'm not mistaken. That's the case, right? You just did it alone. Yeah. Witcher season 1, yeah.
Like this shit show, blah, blah, blah.
I loved it. I loved all the characters in it. Obviously, if you know me, Henry Cavill's probably at the top of my man crush list. So I'm big on it, and I really like episode 1. Awesome. It's a little less familiar for me, because the first one followed like the series of short stories that I've actually listened to the audio books on. So I'm a little in unknown waters, but it's fun. It's just good be back in that world. But today we're here to talk about Matrix, and yeah. So spoiler free section. I really, really like this movie. Like Travis hinted to, I have no idea what his thoughts are, so I'm excited to hear them. But I really, really like this. Honestly, I think there was moments that maybe made me eye roll a little bit. Some of the humor didn't really hit with me at times. And there was just some moments where I felt like they were really going for that, like, this is the Matrix, and like cheesy lines and stuff that made the Matrix great,
Hmm.
which is it's fine to have them in there. They just didn't really work for me. They worked for some people in my theater. I had quite a few laughs, which was always good. Um, but honest, I thought they did such a good job at just hitting the nostalgia factor with like the classic movies. They did a lot of flashbacks to not only the first one but the second and third one as well. Like literally it would be like a flash to those scenes, like
Hmm.
whether it was Keanu when he was whatever age in 1999 when the first one came out, and then it would go back like instantly, and I thought that was used really well actually. So they covered that base, but they also did a good job at not just making it feel like just a repeat. Like, some people bring that up with Force Awakens, and I love that movie. It's great, but I can't deny that it's like literally just a carbon copy of the first. I thought this one pulled some of that magic from the originals, but still made a twist that made it really unique in its own. And whether you lean that into just modern technology allowed them to actually just like do more things like that, whether it was CGI'd characters or just more science, like sci-fi scientific reasonings for like
Hmm.
how they're like living in the world. I thought all that stuff was really, really good. So I thought they did a really good job balancing that, and just um, I thought they did a good job at bringing back that mystery of what like the mystery magic, if that's the right word, the mystery magic that they had in the first one, where it was just like what is real and not. And I thought they brought that back, and it really hit with me. I don't know how you thought on that, but I loved it. So that's probably my spoiler free section. I thought the combat at times it felt a little separated from what the original had. I thought they just had like certain angles that I wasn't loving. It seemed like really low and like kind of shaky cam, so I couldn't really follow what was going on. Where I thought the first one, it's over the top and cheesy, but it was easy to follow. I
Hmm.
don't know if you thought the same. Maybe it was just like darker scenes or whatnot, but I thought some of the action a little bit hard to follow. But overall, it was great. It was a lot of action at parts, and yeah, I had lots of fun with this movie, and I highly recommend it.
Atreo, with a hot take, this movie is tied with Revolutions as my favorite Matrix movie. That's a
Oh,
bold
that
claim
is a
there.
bold claim. Yeah.
Yeah, so for myself, I guess I'll open up the pearly gates. That yeah, I do like the movie. I think it's, I think one thing that I really enjoy is that it leaves it in a better spot for me than Revolutions did. Because Atreo, I'm not a fan of that movie, as we just talked about a Matrix retrospective. That there's some bright spots, but really left kind of a bad taste in my mouth, and I think that's the reason people are like, yeah, I don't need Matrix for a while. And it's very interesting. We knew this going in, but I pretty much everything they did that was the meta stuff, the fourth wall sort of breaking. I love that all. That was all like a home run for me, and that's pretty much the first act. And I feel like the first, second, and third act are very divided. Like you can see it clearly when we switch over. I think it hits on nostalgia pretty well, especially even in like they do a lot of lamp shading of calling that out. Really like, oh, if everyone loves nostalgia, then they're hitting with nostalgia. But I think other than a few little setup moments, it does not follow. It's not like, oh yeah, it's it's not Force Awakens Matrix. It's not the kind of, not a carbon copy, but just like a cover song of what we've had before. We've had that a few times, right, with reboots or sequels that have been away for a while and then they come back and it's relatively the same movie. Doesn't do that at all. And go check out too if you're a fan of Ghostbusters, was pretty similar. They didn't do that at all. And I appreciate that where it incorporates stuff from the original trilogy too. It doesn't ignore the movies that kind of got like the, we don't know if we like it, that's part of the family. It's there. So um, I like it. I think that if I have any cons, I think there is a sense of it, and this is like such a huge task, right? Of none of the sequels fully did this, but it doesn't 100% capture the magic of the first Matrix, and I think that is because like there is like, oh, there's a what is going to happen, but for us this time we do know what's going to happen. We know what is behind most doors because of Matrix 1, 2, and 3, but performances are all good. I think there's some characters that have comeback that I question. It's tough. Like I really like Yaya as Morpheus, but at the same time, I feel like he's very underutilized in this movie, which I was kind of surprised. There's many times in this movie where he just like literally disappears into the background. And I felt like he was gonna have a bigger role, and that kind of got set up, but. I think it's a very interesting movie, and I can't wait to rewatch this again because there's so many times where it's just a mind spoiler where there's people talking in a room, and there's just like it looks like Easter eggs upon Easter eggs, them saying things or referencing things, and I think this is gonna be one that's gonna be fun to rewatch, but also just see when other people see it and the things they point out. I think there's a lot of cool twists on the original movie, and I think, like I said, it really complements it well. And I do think this is a better ending. I think it is. I guess I can't say on spoilers, but it's something that, again, I don't know if I could watch one and then just this one, but I think it's very interesting. I guess most of my thoughts are spoilers, but I think this says a lot about where Lana is too. Is like with her life and things she's gone through, because she even said this, she wrote this movie because her parents passed away and she was really depressed about that, and she talked about the story of like these two people that are in love coming back to life, and that's no spoilers, that's the trailers, and I think they capitalize that well, but I also think it's a lot of commentary on what she goes through. And I think here's another thing, because I've seen this comparison as well where people have compared to like The Last Jedi, and I think because like the Last Jedi, the biggest knock against that is like, oh, well, that's not my Luke Skywalker, right? They made him weak lying and stuff like that. There's lots of commentary, again, on like the idea of the one, but it's nothing to me. Last Jedi, I could see why people make the case of like, oh, it's such a change up from the original trilogy. This just, I think, carries on lots of themes that the original trilogy was putting out, especially with the one, you know, and we're going to add spoilers, but I think this was like, it did not feel like a reboot. So I guess that's why, you know, I always said, why didn't they call it Matrix Reboot? Because it does feel like a continuation. And I think for a fourth one, for a movie that is, what, 2023 was the last, or yeah, 2003 was the last one. So almost 20 years. I think it's a really solid effort. I don't know if I need any more. Like, I wouldn't be opposed, but I don't know if I need any more. But yeah, everyone's good. Keanu's Keanu in this. He's very, you know, very much just like what you'd expect from him. Carrie-Anne Moss is really good. Jessica Henwick, I really like because she was in Iron Fist, and she's really good in this. So yeah, I'd agree with you too as far as I think the strength of this movie, unfortunately, is not the fights. I think there's some good action, but I think for me it was almost like they were too zoomed in, because there's so many times where I feel like Matrix did a good job of showing everyone's full body, where this one felt like a lot of like the waist up and everything like that. And I don't know if that was a choice. I don't know if that was hey, we want to hide some things. I don't know, but they didn't have anything like. Each Matrix movie has a set piece that I can call back to, like, wow, that was amazing for a fight scene. I don't think this movie has that. They have set pieces I would call back to, but it's more for the mind trippery or the Matrix element, not really in the fights. None of them really kind of stood out there. Maybe some of the fights is the closest it got to, like one in particular of, oh, okay, we've kind of been here before and stuff like that. Yeah, I would recommend it to people if you like The Matrix. I think it's not a movie you could just go and see, right? It's something that if you've seen the other ones, you enjoyed them, or even like the first one, I think this is worth giving a watch. So anything non-spoilers before we get into spoilers?
I liked how you mentioned like you probably wouldn't be able to just watch one and then this one if you wanted to watch that order. If you listen to our retros, I'm like with Travis, I don't really love the second and third movie. They're okay. I passed them, but they're nowhere to the caliber of what the first one is, and probably a spoiler to my rating. But I think I would rate this movie above those other two as well.
Yeah.
But because they do a lot of callbacks to the events of how the trilogy ended and what happened in the second movie, not a lot of major stuff. Specifically, like I guess Zion, and just the outcome of like the war. So as long as you have that knowledge, maybe, you know, if you at least know what happens, you could maybe just go from 1 to 4. Because especially just the beginning, it has a lot of similarities with what the first one was, of just like the what's reality, what's not, and that stuff was amazing. Maybe that's why I love the first one so much, is because that's mostly what the movie's about. So obviously, if they have it back in here, I'll sync with that a lot more than the other ones. But no, like you, I totally recommend this to if you're a fan of The Matrix. I thought this was a better conclusion to what the third one gave us, and I'm glad it's a thing. You know, I think the bare minimum of what I wanted out of this movie was like, I'm glad this was made. Not like, oh, I'm so sad that this is just in the works now. You know, like there's some series out there. I don't know if you feel. I haven't seen Zoolander. I don't know if you feel that way about Zoolander too.
Oh, they didn't need to make it.
Yeah.
I wanted Zoolander 2 more than anybody. That was my favorite comedy for long years, and that was a very disappointing thing. And that is very much, again, hit the same jokes, hit the same plot beats,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And it's just, some things are left untouched.
Yeah, and I didn't want that outcome from watching this movie, and I didn't get that. So I think it's a win in my books. No, I don't want to spoil my rating, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you've not seen the movie, now's the time to tune out. Or if you don't care, then we are about to get into spoilers. So we'll take our first ad break, and then we'll be right back. And we're back. So I don't even know where. Like, I guess probably start at the beginning. But like, it's there's a lot to.
Yeah.
It's funny because I feel like it's. I don't want to say like a self-contained movie, but it feels very much like the first one where there's crazy stuff going on, but they have their story, and there's that A and B. It's where the sequels, when it's like, oh, we got so much world building to do, and you're meeting so many characters and all this stuff. But I think the story itself is good, and I think the pacing is good too. If it's 2.5 hours, it did not feel like 2.5 hours. It blew by. I had a fun time with it and everything like that. And to go to the very beginning, well, not the very beginning of the movie, because we'll get into that with the whole watching of Trinity and whatnot, but it was fun because it is an aspect of, okay, the first Matrix, when you watch it, you don't know, you're like, hey, you know, what is this world, what's going on, and stuff like that, and then the reveal is, okay, it's all fake, it's a program, all this sort of stuff, where this is, you're in on it, you know, okay, something's up, you know, Neo is caught in the Matrix again, and what is the issue, and you brought this up in non-spoilers, but I really loved all the, you could almost take them as him having deja vu, all the moments where he would see things and see characters, like when he was talking to the Now, again, we're in spoilers, the now known Agent Smith. I don't even know what they list him in credits on IMDb. I'll have to look. That's why my name's the business partner, because that's what he was at least called by the therapist. But when they're talking and, you know, he just walks in and he's having like, oh, the billion lives. And it catches Agent Smith. And they and he's like, the first time we interacted, you said it was as we had the charisma of an FBI interrogation. And then they cut to that scene right away. And it's great because it is the Matrix messing with him, but you also don't know, is it the Matrix completely messing with him or him messing with himself? And I think it does a good job, and that makes sense that it's Lana directing it, but I think they really do incorporate all the trilogy movies, and they try their best to, you know, especially for the people that do like them, they didn't write them off. They didn't say, oh, we're just going to ignore this and make it about this adventure. They really incorporated the whole story from start to finish, and I think that is a strength of the movie, especially for someone who doesn't even like the sequels that much, you know?
Absolutely. Shall we welcome this random operator to the mix?
Yeah, I guess we should.
Just got out of the Matrix. Wasn't sure I wanted to leave.
Plug me back in.
I'm not gonna lie. I agree with Kirklin. It just looks like you got a rash or a bunch of hickeys on you and whatnot.
Looks like just like some lipstick.
I don't know. She could be hicking up. But Taylor, I guess, and the good thing is you're in spoilers, so you can say whatever you want. But Taylor Field is joining us. What did you think of Matrix Resurrections?
Oh boy, it was definitely good, but I found myself to be kind of bored throughout some of it. Like I actually like.
And this man liked Revolutions. This is saying something, you know.
I definitely found that it wasn't drawing me in for a lot of stuff. Like, at least for the first half, I felt like, okay, like they're like you were talking about deja vu and certain things that they were trying to pull off. I'm like, okay, I get that. Like they're going for this kind of MO, and it feels like even Neo doesn't know, okay, what's real. Is it kind of set up to be, you know, a dream? I like the concept of him having made this video game. I like how the Matrix kind of set him up for that path of success, and him using the real life world in the Matrix, I guess, to be successful. But yeah, at its core, I didn't. I think I need to watch it again. I really do, because I think there's a lot of stuff that like kind of wasn't clicking, like what they were trying to do. But I'm glad that we did the retro, because I think that extremely helped. If we didn't do the retro and we went into this movie, I would have been like, fuck, what am I missing?
Yeah, like there's a certain character. Like I don't care. I'll just bring him up now. We talked about him. It's so funny because I can't remember which one of you asked if he would appear the whole like program or whatnot with the wife and everything. Like, oh, like would he appear? And he has this moment where like a few like enemies or whatnot from Neo's past comes back, and he's like all homeless looking and has big hair and everything like that. And my theory was funny to know, okay, who's watched Matrix recently or knows Matrix and who doesn't, because that got a lot of kick out of some people. But then I also like there's a couple beside me that had no fucking clue. They were like looking around like
I didn't even
I'm
clue in
missing a-
immediately. I
Oh,
was
did you?
like,
Oh,
who
yeah.
the fuck is this? And then I'm like, oh, he's speaking
Oh.
French. Okay, yeah, that's what
I had
this
no
is.
idea that was it until just now. Holy
See, yeah,
shit.
you
There you
have to
go.
rewatch
And we
this
just did the
movie.
retro, so you can
Yeah.
imagine some people will be lost.
But you see, and I guess for me, the beginning, I loved all that stuff of sitting down, like, oh, Warner Brothers, they want to make a fourth one, but they can't do that. Like, oh no, that's sorry, they're gonna make a fourth one, so start thinking of ideas, and it's just like, I love all the people. I think I've showed this out before, but if they don't know, I love New Nightmare, which is part of the Nightmare on Elm Street series, and that is a very meta Freddy Krueger movie where Freddy Krueger comes into the real world and then he goes after the actors, and it's really funny. And I love all this type of stuff. Like I said, I love there's constantly like moments where they're showing the coding, and they did this a lot where they had like them talking about the game and like the coding kind of going behind them, but just little stuff. I love that our first shot of the movie, they're in some sort of like they were going after the fake Trinity, and there was water, but to the side there was like this wall with water and looked like the code. And I think that like worked so well for later on when Morpheus talks about how he just started seeing it and he couldn't resist it. I think this movie does that a lot, where there's constant shots of just code going down. And I guess I loved everything because again, we know the trick. We know, okay, he's in the Matrix, how he can do this. But I love the whole, Trinity has a husband named Chad. That is the guy who is the stunt coordinator for the original Matrix, but he's also the John Wick directors and stuff like that. So like it's very like there's so much meta stuff going on that I think it's just the first half or the first act is just kind of Easter egg city that I guess I was really into. And I liked the plot point of they gave him the Matrix as a video game, so it's not like if he ever thinks about the Matrix and his experiences, he doesn't start to clue in and think, oh man, what happened? Like I lived this life. It's like, oh no, you're just thinking about your video game. That's just your game you're thinking about. Like that's why you're dreaming about. That's just your game. And it's so good of just I love Neil Patrick Harris in this. I think we'll talk about him near the end, but I love the concept of him being like this wrangler, and he's trying to keep him, and even they call his friend that the Wrangler, like that Wrangler program, you know. And I love that the Matrix has just gone like times 10 on all the trying to keep Neo in check and all these things. And I love the therapy aspect. I love him going in and out. So the first act, I have so many good things to say about, honestly. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, 100%, man. I agree. Like 100%. I loved all the like I would call it fourth wall breaking stuff, because they're just like really trying to be like, are you in the Matrix? Like you, the
Yeah.
viewer, because they're like bringing up Warner Brothers, all the the stuff I was talking about in the first Matrix, how I think it just stands the test of time because people are like actually talking about simulation theory and like just being in your 9 to 5 routine. It's like, am I literally just a simulated program here? They just like ramped that up in this movie and like had more relevant examples, made it more modern. I was talking about the technology like usage in the in non-spoiler section. My gosh. So I just thought all of that was turned up to another level, and like the first one just stands the test of time, but this one again, it's just like almost future proofing like what this movie is. And that was so well handled. You mentioned Neil Patrick Harris. I'm sure we'll deep dive him on the villain side, but just him being a Wrangler type character, and when he would appear to like confront Neo is like when he's like basically on his way out, and then all of a sudden you just show up. He's like, just so you know, this is like just in your head right now, and then he just like brings him back to the Matrix. Oh man, such a great concept. The psychological like twist and like just really playing on like, is Neo just like tripping? Like, is he just crazy, or is this the Matrix? Obviously, it's the movie's called The Matrix. We know what's gonna happen. He's just gotta take that pill. But still, in the moment, they did such a good job at portraying that, and that's why I feel like this movie, like even if you haven't seen the other Matrixes, I think you could still get something out of it. Like you don't necessarily have to watch the other ones to at least get some concept of what the Matrix is.
I think it's more the back half that becomes a problem
Yeah.
if you haven't seen the other
Yeah,
movies, because they start
definitely.
lowering the shit out of you, and they start talking about like what happened to Morpheus, and here's Niobe, and like they're like they go hard, and that's like once he's back in it, that's when it's tough, because I think
Definitely.
the first act you have that kind of similar, like they could have done a different character with this storyline, right? And you could have felt like, oh, this is a reboot, but because it's Neo, that you get this kind of fresh start, this fresh slate with him being back in the Matrix. But then when he gets out, there's all this baggage. But again, as someone that likes the franchise overall, because even the sequels that I don't love, I like the world and the concept, and this is fun being back in that world. They really do justice for that, for answering questions and things like that. And yeah, with Neil Patrick Harris, it was interesting because I wasn't sure if he was just a program or if he was going to be the main bad guy. You know, like I was going really back and forth of where are we going to go on this route. And I think they gave him very, like, Mr. Smith or Agent Smith, like, equivalent dialogues. Like, I can't remember, he talked about the... again, because I've only seen this once. It's something that I'll show in the future if I ever watch this again. But it's like, it was a conversation about ideas versus feelings, and how feelings are just like the worst things humans can have, and like how they live in their brain, because like what they do is they just create, like, the Matrix is not as bad as what the humans create in their own mind, and what that is they have these feelings, and like they could just pretend they're living their own lives, right? And then people talk about all the time of like, if there's the best way to example is if a couple breaks up, right, and there's like his story, you know, the other person, his, hers, whatever, there's a two couple stories, but then there's the truth. But the problem is most of the time with the couples or a big breakup or something like that, enough time goes on that whatever you thought was the version, it becomes the version in your head of like what happened. And that could be anything in life, right? So I really like they tackle that, as far as, you know, when Neo and other people of, you know, whether it's you thinking you're the hero or doing the right thing or just your life, whatever you think was the version that happened is, you know, that's what you think, but that doesn't mean that's the case it is. And I think they did some good dialogues about, again, humans versus machines and stuff like that, and why they want to take them out, because it is kind of tapping on human ideology and stuff like that. So So Taylor, what about the beginning? Because you were saying you found it a little boring, so you weren't really digging much of the meta stuff or fourth wall breaking stuff or things like that.
I mean, you remember what he rated the first Matrix? He hated that movie.
I hated it.
Yeah, I hated it.
Half as bad as Kirkland's Dune score.
I feel like I am gonna have to rewatch this, because I mean, like, I wouldn't say like it wasn't bad or by any means, but I just thought like, okay, like I'm not really on board with what they were trying to go for, like what they were doing. Like I don't know, it felt like,
I thought you'd be all over the meta video game stuff and the world and everything. And then even then, again, talking about like Lana and being the director, like look at the new game he's making. It's called Binary. Like that's a very fun, like, kind of, and I have more to talk about that with the ending and everything like that, as far as I feel this has a lot to do with her journey, as well as far as like, like everyone knows the story that she's now a woman and stuff like that. She's talked openly, but I thought you'd be all over some of the video game stuff for the meta stuff. Or
well, I thought it was cool. I'm not gonna disregard the fact that, yeah, it was cool, and I definitely did have a part of me that did enjoy it. But at the same time, I just thought like that set up the foundation of what I felt like was not necessarily needed to be, or was like a sequel film to, you know, the trilogy. To me, it just set up this groundwork of a spin-off, and I didn't feel like obviously the Matrix was an upgrade, and that's why you have all these different like reskin characters and all these different things that are in the Matrix reskin programs and all that stuff.
Because they did say they rebooted it, and they did have, because they say even when they're looking at it, they're like, oh, why are they using old coding here and stuff? So this is technically a new Matrix and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I thought that was interesting, but like the story that I really wanted to see more of was the machines turning on the machines and the humans just standing by, and like a new rising power coming out of that conflict. I wanted to see them, like the machines struggling on like the dynamic of, okay, we're running low on power and we're fighting over it, and much more of like that conflict that's arising from that in the Matrix. And instead I feel like we got something that wasn't that serious, and it was just like Neo Neo didn't even need to be in this movie. Trinity, I didn't feel like needed to be in this movie. It was just like it was
whoa.
showing them like a rise to power. Like it honestly felt like it was just more of a spin-off movie. I didn't feel like there was a precedent set to why Neo needed to be in this. I feel like okay, they used him just to kind of move the story along. Like, hey, we found you just wandering along in the Matrix because the guy doing the therapist. He happened along to figure out a way of connecting Neo and Trinity together to create some new kind of generation of power or something like that along those means that just he can't keep them touching each other but keep them within that close proximity of each other, and then it taps into a whole new stuff. And he's talking about how new beating his records every month, all that stuff, his production values, all that jazz, which is fine, but that's not really what I wanted to see. I didn't need that in a Matrix movie about a machine bragging about that kind of thing. I wanted to see this dynamic and the fallout of Neo, what he did in the last film, where okay, the war has ended, the machines are holding their truce and are literally there's this whole dynamic there, and I feel like they just skipped over that. Like literally, 20 years of stuff I would have loved to have dived into a little bit more. Instead,
60 years actually.
Was it 60 years? Oh, I thought it was 20
Well,
years.
so he was in there for 20, but he was in there 60 because what happened is I guess it took like 40 years to build Neo and Trinity back up. I gotta go because you said some things there that I found crazy that I do not understand. When you say you want to see the impact of Neo, they showed that these motherfuckers are really growing fruit now because of this guy, and they have a whole colony.
They are, but they skim all the way through that. They skim through that, and they lightly tap on the fact like, oh, you'd rather just grow fruit than I don't know what she says, but then deal with what's going
That's
on.
what it was.
Yeah.
It was almost like take care of the people you have instead of broadening the terms. But see, I guess, and that's where it comes down to again with you in Matrix 1, because for me, I thought the Zion stuff was the perfect amount. Where the sequels we got too much of it, and I think the main stuff, and this is where I guess I'll push back of you saying, and maybe this is to your likes as far as like, oh, your main stuff you want to know about the lore, the machines versus machines. This movie is 100% to me for it's about Neo and Trinity, and it really to me I guess that's why it's a strange sequel, but I guess that's why I kind of like it because it does get into the one and all these big things. Cause even Atreus is like, oh, did you notice they got rid of all the religious stuff from 2 and 3? I don't even think it's that. I just think that was not the focus this time around. Of they talk about the chosen one, but I think the focus was literally these two have a second chance. These two love each other. They had a really shit deal trying to save the world, and this is the way of trying to get there. And I also think with the way the movie ends, I know I'm jumping to it, but so you have, and they look great, especially when Trinity gets her nice little cape and everything like that, but with the ending of a very therapist, and she's kicking the shit at him and everything like that. But when it ends with, we talked about this before, and that was kind of not even confirmed. I feel like this is just because they were clinging on to each other, but almost her being a one-like figure and stuff like that. To me, that is very, that's why I guess I like it, because it feels smaller, but it feels very personal to the director, because you have a director who, when she started The Matrix, she was a man, and her whole life she felt off, felt different, wanted to change, and here you get all the way to Matrix Resurrections, and it's like the main character in a sense. That's why I know some people are saying, oh, it's like Last Jedi, it's shitting on Luke. It's really not. They literally have Neo and her fly together. It's not like they depowered Neo to make Trinity great and all that. So it's just but you literally have this moment where now she is having all this control, and the last line of the movie is her and Neo going back and forth with oh, a fresh start, something new that we can really change some things. And then I love the shot at the end when they're flying together. So I guess that's why for me, whether it is to me the story of Lana or the story of this love story between these two that have been kind of just torn apart their whole lives trying to get back together, and the fact that it ended happy and they were just there, I guess that's for me. If I thought this movie was a movie about Neo and Trinity, and I think they delivered on that. Kirklin, where are you on all that?
I'm more in your camp. Maybe it's just because you and I both loved the first one. Taylor was a little bit lesser on it, so maybe that's where we differ there. But I thought they did such a good job at still keeping Neo as the one, and then the thing from the first movie was Neo's the one. Trinity's destiny is you're gonna fall in love with the one, and I thought they did such a good job at just tying their two destinies together, because they always were, but really the power isn't just because Neo's the one. It's they're two possibly separate destinies that combine to make the
Yes.
one like prophecy type
He couldn't
deal.
have become if even in this movie he says he doesn't believe he's the one, but even if he is, he couldn't have become the one without her and her help.
No,
Right?
it's like his love for Trinity is so much that he like believes through her that he could
Yes.
be the one. And I thought they jumped into that, and again like that was something new, right? Because they never blatantly just say that in the original three movies. So in this one, they're not discrediting the original destinies that the two had. It's just like maybe that was the beginning of the destiny, and then as more gets revealed, that tied the two of them together. I mean, we were kind of speculating that was going to be the case, like maybe there's two ones or like they're really tied together. But I thought the explanation was handled really well. And then the other thing we were touched upon was just the like time jump type thing. I was okay with the explanation. I thought it worked fine for me. I liked that Neo was almost having that like midlife crisis type situation. Like everything I did, everything the sacrifice that me and Trinity had, like it was
Yeah.
it was pointless. And then we had Bugs, who we haven't talked about yet, but she had that like sit down moment with him, and like she shows the examples of like, look at all these technologies we have now. We have this like bioluminescent sky, all these new things that we never would have had. Like our lives were literally just war. He has that great sit down moment with Niobe of just like explaining the silence, and like this is just a completely different world that they now have, and it's entirely because of him and the original squad from those first three movies. I have some negative things with Niobe, but I don't know if we want to jump into that
Well,
now
I want to make one point on something you said about the whole like, oh, what has happened? Like it was pointless, right? And I think that's what we talked about in Matrix 3, and that's what to me is the problem with the Chosen One in Star Wars, where you have whoever it is, if you want to say it's Anakin or Luke Skywalker. The prophecy is that they're going to bring balance of the Force. Now you guys can think whatever you want, but to me in movie world and the way they propose in the movies is like, the good guys win, right? And even then, so if it's the Chosen One, okay, fine, he brings balance to the Force. Then what happens in the sequels? Like the balance is all over the place, right? So that's the problem where I think Star Wars really fumbled that with the continuation. And I said with Matrix 3, it's like it's tough when there's this prophecy, right, of all the Chosen One, and he's supposed to do this. And when you're saying, oh yeah, you know that trilogy that was supposed to tell this grand story about the Chosen One, his life and death. Oh, we're doing a fourth one, and he's back, and you kind of go, oh, okay. What like you could really step on the trench coat, and you could really ruffle this up. And I think that's what they do great right away when he does wake up. He's like, there's all these prophecies, and I was supposed to fix all this stuff, and it was literally a waste of time. It was all this sacrifice and blood, sweat, and tears for nothing. And then, like you were talking about, all these examples of what you did. And I was like, yeah, okay, you didn't save the world, you didn't rid everything, but they even said, like, there was peace for a while. We're growing fruit. We're working with the machines. Like, there is clearly a bigger community of people. So it's like I think with Neo, that was a great thing, and that's where I think in Star Wars they should hit a bit more. It's like the realization of your effects aren't just, okay, you won the war and the day one everything changes. It's just like that change is happening. It's just going to be sporadically over decades and decades. And yeah, them coming back, it's like at the end of the day, with Matrix 2 and more 3, when they start to propose that, oh, Neo is like the chosen one outside the world and outside the programming, he has these powers and whatnot, that's when I don't know if I really like that, but still we live in that world. So now if that's the world we got set up, I can believe that these machines literally just like piece these people together. Like they literally like taking their brains, going like, again, you can look at it and go, oh, this is a little cheesy. Like literally they just Frankenstein them. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's like, look at this world. And I like that. It was a good example because that was the whole thing. People were like, you know, when he wasn't blind in the trailers, people were like, oh, they're just retconning the trilogy. It's like, no, these machines, even though they should have probably kept Neo blind, probably would have been a safe call because you never know. But still, they meticulously, they had Neo and they could figure out this power. But the reason they couldn't get it going in the Matrix to power up is because they could not get the source code right. And what is the source code? Well, it's kind of, to me, it's saying like his love. Like that's what the main thing you're missing from Neo. You could have everything about Neo, the chosen one, his personality. But if he doesn't have the love for Trinity, which is the most important thing to his factor, he's not working. And same thing for her. So that's what I really liked in that dynamic.
And Neil Patrick Harris, I think his title was the analyst, actually,
The
not
analyst,
the therapist. Yeah. But he even dropped that line, like, you two individually, there's nothing amazing about the two. It's the what the anomaly is the two of them together. And that was I like that explanation because again, it's not just like, we need Neo. He's the one. He's the one that's going to save the world. It worked for what the original Matrix was in that trilogy.
Yeah.
I totally would defend that for sure. I think that's a part of what makes the Matrix so fun, but this is just growing upon that. And then there you have like a fresh story that doesn't just feel regurgitated from what the original is. It's adding on to it. It's taking what was great from that and just building upon it. And I think that was a really good take from Lana and the rest of the team that made this movie, because it's not just a rehash. Like in my mind, I'm like, man, I don't think it's gonna happen, but like I could totally see more of these Matrix movies, because like in reality, like okay, even if we have a happy ending, like you could just make a new version of the Matrix.
Yeah.
It might dilute over time if they keep trying to do that, but I think they succeeded with this, and I'm
Well,
happy.
yeah, and I think that there's two things I'll say there because I'll throw back to Taylor because I want his opinion because I feel one, I guess I'll speak about the ending quickly. Of like, I feel like, and I don't know if this was on purpose, but I feel like they end it very similar to Matrix One. The way I always took Matrix One is, oh, Neo's gonna be out in the world. He's gonna systematically pick apart the Matrix and start freeing people. And they pretty much insinuate that at the end of this, right? Like, oh, it's a whole new world. We
Now
can
there's
show
two.
people rain. Yeah, now there's two, and like they kicked the shit of the analyst. He really couldn't do anything. So that to me is like, I would be like open to more Matrix, but I think at the end of the day, I am kind of fine with the ending here because it puts that like happy end bow of like, well, they're together and now they're gonna free everybody. But I don't think Taylor's alone. This is where I'll throw back to you, Taylor, because we talked a lot about Trinity and Neo and everything like that. Where I think if you are a fan of that, like Taylor, the lore aspect or the war or the grander thing, I could see that there's definitely some people are disappointed in this movie. I could see people being disappointed because this does feel like a little side adventure almost in the Matrix, because it is just about these two finding love. Because at the end of the day, them getting together doesn't stop the Matrix. It does to an extent, but it doesn't like tear down everything like that. So I'm gonna throw back to Taylor after this next ad break. And we're back. So Taylor, me and Kirklin went a lot about with the Neo and Trinity stuff. I wasn't sure if there's anything you wanted to add on that dynamic or anything we brought up or anywhere else you wanted to go.
I enjoy the dynamic. I'm happy that again these characters are back, but at the same time, like I get this is a movie about Neo, coming back, like he's been reconstructed, he's brought back, but at the same time I feel like, okay, having this storyline focused so heavily on them, then these other characters, I felt like I couldn't really connect to these other characters because it's just like, oh, we have this guy that's playing a new Agent Smith that I don't really care about because it's okay, we got the original Neo here. I don't really have any, like, I think this is a troubling dynamic, and you were comparing this to Star Wars, the sequel trilogy. That's a case where I think that they do it really well, and I note that in many other instances when they do like a comeback movie or something like that, where you have the original character, but you got to bring them back in the right dosage because these other characters, you can have some nostalgic ones and stuff like that, but then you're trying to bring in like the new characters like Colleen and stuff like that. It just doesn't, it doesn't cement
No Way
properly.
Home. No Way Home did a good job. Like, not even talking spoilers, just like even the villains, like they do a good job of. So, like that's the thing where it's tough. Where I agree with Kirkland completely on the Neo and Trinity stuff, where I think that's great. But I don't know how much I'll push back at you on the side character stuff because I think it was. It's an interesting take to have this, like have a lot of side characters that are the old characters but new, but so. None of that was really working for you. You already called it Agent Smith. Did Morpheus work for you? So like, obviously we have other side characters, but like the ones that were returning with new skins, what worked and what didn't work for you?
Morpheus was interesting, but I think I liked how they explained that. I think it was actually a really cool concept, and I like how that kind of like bled into them being able to like manifest themselves digitally in like the actual like our world. I really like that setup. I thought it was pretty cool. It was a great way to kind of carry on Morpheus's legacy. But then when you have like that one chick, like, oh, like I'm Roland's granddaughter, it's like, okay, this is actually pretty cool. But then there's like nothing to really run with that. It's like, well, okay, it's just they threw it in there just because, that's fine. And there's other characters, like, I don't know, just other characters like ogling over Neo a little bit, which is totally fine for the story. I get it.
Well,
He's
you
a
gotta do
legend.
that. He's
Absolutely.
the chosen one,
He's a chosen one. But at the same time, it's like, well, I'm not really connecting these characters. They're all driving in, vehicles, and Neo's on a bike with Trinity going down the center of town with the fucking zombie hordes jumping on them. And it's like, I have no sentimental value or connection to these characters outside of Neo and Trinity that I hope make it out of this alive. So
Well, it's interesting because one thing I want to point out before I completely forget, when you're talking about like Matrix One and everything, when we had what's his name, the turncoat in Matrix One, who goes back because he sells out Neo and the gang because he wants to live in the world, be famous. Ignorance is bliss guy.
Cypher.
Cypher.
Right?
I want to, yeah. So when they're doing the montage, which I really love, they used the songs from the trailers, and it was like the whole montage of them making the video games. They literally at one point show Keanu eating the steak, and to me that's what it was.
Oh
supposed to
man,
yeah.
I was eating that
whole,
up like a steak.
That whole montage of like the I can't remember actually what the song is called. It's I don't know. It's
I'll look it up.
something.
It was
Yeah.
bugging me. I couldn't think of it.
Because it's using the trailer. I listen to the cinematic version so much on YouTube. It's so good. But that montage was really good. But this is where, yeah, I'll agree with you where it's tough because I'm of two minds. Where Morpheus, I can say like I'm a little underwhelmed because especially with Yaya, I thought we were going to get some really great stuff. And I thought he was good to be the introduction, but then he just kind of went away. It's tough, like when you're talking about the characters being in danger. It's like, well, Morpheus never feels like he's in danger because he's kind of a program per se, and just like he could come back. Agent Smith, I'm very mixed upon it. So I love the dynamic of they both get reprogrammed and they get put together as like the game developer and the boss. Like I love that they're just kind of they have that Batman Joker dynamic, right? They're kind of linked forever, you know. And apparently, like the reason, what's his name, Hugo Weaving's not in this because scheduling conflicts. But to me, it almost like it does work a little bit better with a new guy in there because you don't know right away what's going to happen. But at the same point, he doesn't. He acts a little like Mr. like Agent Smith, but not the same way as like that guy that played Bane and like, you know, had that very cadence. Like it's tough because I like the things they did of, we kind of talked about this. I love anytime we get a hero villain team up, and we kind of talked about that Matrix 3, like if Smith were to come back, we could see him kind of being a bit more on the good side. And I like that he had that Barbosa-ness to him where he'd be with you and he helps Neo and Trinity, and then after he does like, hey, like, well, I'm out, like best of luck to you, and he leaves, and it's like that's very Agent Smith. So, and I actually really, again, it doesn't feel like Agent Smith particularly, but I'm a huge fan of Jonathan Groff, not because of Frozen, but in Mindhunter. I really like the actor, so I'm very mixed on both Morpheus and Agent Smith. Kirkland, did you find that song? And then what did you think of our returning / new characters?
Yeah, the song's called White Rabbit.
White Rabbit, thank you.
Very
Great
fitting.
song, yeah.
There's like 3 artists, so just go through one of them.
And also another thing to mention this is for the whole, I think, up to do with Lana's dynamic, they used a Rage Against the Machine song at the end, but it was a female covering it this time.
Yeah,
so, very
okay.
clever. And
I thought I noticed
go
it.
ahead. Yeah, and that's where I this is one that I think I might buy, but I'm very interested to hear because clearly, like the first movies were allegories for what her and her sister were going through, and I think there's a lot of that in this. So I'd love to hear once this movie is out and her talk about these things, of like things we didn't even pick up on. But I thought that was really fun. Of when she made this movie the first time around, or the trilogy, very different spot in life, and now like I think that song just symbolizes like it's that person's still there to their core, like the music is still there, the tune, the song. But it's a new lead singer, and I thought that was a nice touch. But what did you think, Kirkland, of, like I said, the returning / new characters?
Yeah, I mean, that was something I was excited to just find out more just from the trailers. We were getting major Agent Smith vibes from, I forget the actor's name that you just said. Jonathan Groff.
I think it's like Groff. Like, I don't know if I'm
Groff
saying it right,
or something.
but Groff, yeah.
Just call him John.
Just call him
Jonathan,
Sven from Frozen,
Yeah, Sven from Frozen, or just Mr. Smith, I guess, the new one.
Yeah, Mr. Smith, yeah.
So I really, really love, like you said, when we enter his office right away, and it's just like he's dropping the line that like Hugo Weaving drops. The side by side so good, and he's just such a different version of Agent Smith that we know from Hugo Weaving's interpretation of it. But
yeah.
I really, really liked it. Obviously, I was hoping Hugo Weaving would make at least some appearance later on in the film. I wasn't aware that there was scheduling issues, so he just couldn't make it. But
I just found that out today.
Oh, okay.
Literally today.
There
When I look at IMDb and it was in the trivia, I'm like, oh, okay, I guess that's why. Because Lawrence Fishburne was like, they never asked me. They never, see, they were just like, didn't
I've been
want
calling
to
them.
yeah, and it makes sense now. But with this, I guess, again, though, I think I'm like you, where I think there is some fun to it being a new actor.
No, for sure. Even just with Morpheus, like I like the, like because when he first came on, it was like the basically the opening scene when it's like almost the exact same scene that we've seen from the very first movie, just different actors. Things are different,
Mhm.
and then he comes out as the Agent Smith, and I'm like, holy, this is not what I thought Yaya
Yeah.
was. And right away, I knew I was getting excited because it's something very different from what we knew. Right away, I'm like, is this how Morpheus? Like was he an android or something? Like right away? No, that's right. They're just switching things up here. But I liked it again. That fit the category of just changing things and like making it
Mhm.
new from what the original had. So all that stuff worked for me. I liked how Morpheus again was a middle ground between the two. You brought it up earlier, but I love that scene when he's just kind of noticing stuff is different. Like he's seeing the code and
Yeah.
like this is bizarre, and then he starts questioning his own reality, even if he is just a computer program. And again, that's basically what Agent Smith was dealing with. More so, actually, it's a little bit in the first movie, but more so the later ones when he's like unplugged. But I'm thinking like when he
Mhm.
has that conversation with Morpheus in the first movie, like I'm just sick of this place. I need to get out. I don't know what it is, but just something. And then obviously that just gets expanded tenfold once he gets like binded with Neo. So yeah, like the Morpheus stuff was really great, but just getting back to Jonathan Sven as this Smith, I really liked how he most of the time he was just calling him Thomas, Tom,
Also, for my daughters, I was wrong. His name is Christoph. Sven's the fucking deer.
Christoph. There you go.
Christoph. Yeah. Just so it's, 20 years.
It's a bigger
when they're
role than Sven.
Yeah, 20 years when they're listening to this, like you got it wrong. So Christoph, sorry.
Good check. Yeah, they would have hated you for that one.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I
you're saying he's call him Tom and stuff like
yeah.
that's what I just don't like. So, and this is not negative. I'm genuinely asking you, Kirkland, until you ask after. Is he so different because it's just okay? It's a newer actor, want to change it up, or like what has happened to him over the years? Because it feels like Neo, once he snaps out of it, he's not the exact same, but he's pretty similar to what he was. Where Mr. Smith was the same way. He was kind of brainwashed, right? Agent Smith, as far as thinking a whole new life. Like I love the scene with the it just going to shit with in the room when they go to the room and jump and stuff like that, because it's like Neo, he is like figuring everything out and he's having flashbacks, and then you literally have Agent Smith from his point of view having flashbacks like, oh, this is not my life, like I used to be
Mhm.
this like program. So that's why I wonder, is like, is it more so just because they got a new actor, or what maybe changed him along the way? And again, not a negative thing, I'm very excited to watch it again, but it is a very different take.
Yeah, I want to say it is a mix of both, like newer actor and just new version. But I feel like I'm mostly leaning on the fact that this is just like a different Matrix situation that Neo's in the first one, he's just like he's a programmer, but it's almost like he's a pencil pusher at this like really big like
Yeah.
software company, and he's just someone that lives in a cubicle. Whereas here, he's like a main game designer. His partner, the business partner, is it's someone that he's kind of like it's his yin to his yang. Like they're just kind of they even drop the line where like we just have a lot of differences with our plans, but still we built this together. You
Yeah.
brought up the comparisons to the Joker and Batman, and it's definitely that vibe that we got from even just the original trilogy with Neo and Smith.
Yeah.
So I thought
Hannibal and Will, that sort
yeah,
of just
yeah,
like
exactly.
stuck together.
And what is it? An unstoppable force meeting an immovable object.
Yeah.
And I mean that was shown in their fight scenes. I haven't even touched on that, but just this actor's version of it. I think when he was on screen, I wasn't able to just fully jump in on him being Smith, just because it's so
Yeah.
different from what I'm used to. This guy, you said he's in Mindhunter, but he also reminds me of the actor that plays Dennis from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. If you've seen that show, he's just like a total douchebag, and he's great. He's so funny, but like that's just what I was getting. So I'm like, I'm just picturing this like really asshole like tech, like big tech guy who's like really young, at least compared to, or he seems
Yeah.
younger than what Hugo even was in the earlier ones.
And I guess you can kind of write off too, because he does say the main reason he wants to take it, Neil Patrick Harris, is because like he never wants to be like have a leash on him ever again. And you could
Yeah.
take that it's like obviously his appearance, but just like even looks or like ticks that he has could be gone or changed because like the therapist has been fucking with him so much for these past 60 years. Like he's literally probably changing his coding and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's smart because like they even showed at the beginning when he dropped that Agent Smith quote. I'm sure he could have acted and be like, I'm gonna do Hugo Weaving like that Bane actor did, right? But
Right.
I
Yeah.
think with the Bane one it was different because that was literally Agent Smith coming into the real world and he's seeping in. Where this, I think it was smart to go a different direction because it's the same thing as you. Like, I don't know how fully I am on, like, I'm not fully in on him, Agent Smith, but I think if you had just had him doing that and doing the same cadence and voice, you would have felt like, man, I just wish we had Hugo Weaving. You know, like, I
Yeah.
think you don't, for Bane, he was in a couple scenes. With this, if you're going to be like a side antagonist, and I like that, okay, again, that's where the movie kind of falls into like, the Force Awakens style of like when they fight in the middle. This is very much just like Matrix 1, but it's like a fun little tribute and things like that. So I'm excited to watch that again and see how I feel because I think they just nail the history and the dynamic though, that part. Like I do love that they made him have like not a good guy turn, but he did help them out. And I think we were always kind of saying like, oh, I'm surprised they never did that in the trilogy. And here's where they finally did it. And again, once he helped them out, I love that line of like, you could have been anyone, but I could be anyone.
Yeah.
Anyone could have been you, but I could be anyone. So it's like he helps them and he turns into like the regular person to avoid the swarm. He doesn't even help them at all. He's like,
Yeah.
sorry. And that to me is such an Agent Smith thing to do, you know?
No, absolutely. And again, like just showing the difference between this Smith and Hugo Weaving Smith is just like I was commenting that he just seems like a younger like tech type like guy as opposed to just a guy in the black suit. He's like his suit, he's wearing a blazer, just a shirt. He's got like loafers on, no
Yes.
socks. Like he's just like a very modern like businessman as opposed to like the FBI or like the men in black suit. And it also was shown in just his body language and the way that he seemed a lot more sly in his dialogue. He's not just so robotic, Mr. Anderson.
Yeah.
Just
Maybe
talking
he's
like
adapted
this.
as a person too, almost
Yeah,
too, right?
and
Yeah.
that could just be I would imagine it's just a result of like the updated Matrix version, like it's just kind of revised or something. I can't remember if they specifically talk about that, but I like that it was different. I still prefer Hugo Weaving's, but
Yeah.
I'm glad they made the jump and made it different as opposed to just being like, let's just bank on like trying to make Hugo Weaving again.
Yeah, and like I said, everyone watched Mindhunter, and even though in these scenes, even some of the conflict to have after I watched this, like, man, I want Jonathan Groff and some Marvel DC stuff. You know, I would love him. I don't know where it would be, but Taylor, yeah, I wanted to get more of your thoughts because you said you weren't so Morpheus. You're kind of digging, but so with Smith, would you have rather this just have been a new character, or how do you feel? Because it sounds like you felt maybe this was a little lackluster version of Smith here.
It's problematic. You bring in a different agent to replace Smith, it's just gonna feel like, okay, well, it's definitely not gonna match up to the original. Like,
Yeah,
what
the
Smith
baggage
was.
is gone. Yeah,
Yeah, and so if you bring in a new, obviously what they did, a new actor to portray Smith, I find it okay. Like Smith, I'm pretty confident I could say like was completely fucking annihilated in that last movie. But just to bring him back, why would the robots create another Smith program and to put him into the Matrix? I feel like the robots, the machines, whatever, wouldn't touch another Smith with a 10 billion foot fucking long pole because they wouldn't want to have anything happen like that. Maybe they thought it would
10
be different
billion.
because they control Neo this time around, but they weren't letting Neo kind of go around and be like a hero on their side. It was just like him and Stasis. So I don't know why they would play with fire and just let a Smith come out because Smith was doing his own thing in this.
Well, yeah, and I agree 100% that it's just like the running joke of Matrix that no matter what happens to Agent Smith, like he's just going to come back. And I guess that's like a virus in a sense, but I do agree that I think I would have liked the same way how we got a bunch of story on how Neo and Trinity got back. I would have liked a little bit more of how did Smith get back. 'Cause I felt like he was even the first movie I thought he was a goner when he literally got his coding just ripped apart. But they reference it, right? Like, oh well, Neo jumping into him, they combined. And is that just it? Is that just Agent Smith will always be around while Neo's around? I guess that's it. But I think they could have given us a little bit better of explanation in this one why he was back again.
Oh, definitely. I agree. It could have been a little bit cleaner, but I think I was just kind of headcaning it as like there's already glitches and like bugs in the Matrix. It's an imperfect system. There's these back doors that people can just have access to. You think if the architect, the analyst, whoever's making the Matrix, if they were all knowing, they could cover all those bases. But I think Smith is just kind of a result of that, almost like the anomaly that they explain. I mean, in this one, they explain that anomaly is something more like an emotion of love and stuff. But just
Yeah.
thinking, I think it's the third movie, or is it the second movie when he talks to the architect?
Second movie.
The second movie, yeah, and he explains like there's just these anomalies that just happen. Like it's if you run the sim infinite times, these are going to show up, and I feel like Neo and Smith are just results of that. That's kind of how I headcanon it, but I agree with you guys. I think it could have been explained more. I think you could have fit it in very easily too, and that would have been taking out some Niobe stuff, because I had some issues with Niobe. I don't know if you want to transition there right now, if you guys are done with Smith, or
I just want to get this last thing because I want to get Taylor's thoughts and maybe even yours thoughts too of like the comparison to Last Jedi had me nervous for this film. Now, obviously, Dr. Uri, I imagine reading that comment, you're not a fan of Last Jedi, so anytime that's compared, it's gonna get you. But like, to me, is the comparisons? Is it this and Dr. Uri, try not to take offense to it. I think there's a lot of people cry babies like not my Luke Skywalker. Is that what people were like? Like, do you think that's why people are making the comparison? Because I actually haven't read reviews. I usually don't until like after. Like, what do you think? Is that the comparison of just like, oh, Neo's not the chosen one? It's like him and Trinity. Because I don't see many of the comparisons to Last Jedi as far as. Other than I think that could be the theme as far as like, oh, they took Neo and depowers. It's like even in the final act, like he's saving Trinity all the time. He's throwing out force fields. He's blocking bullets. It's like he was still a powerful motherfucker. Could he not fly? No. And I actually really like the joke when they're like, "Can you fly?"
Yeah, that was great.
And they like the air came up, and then the music Matrix was playing. Like the theme's like, "Oh, here we go," and he goes to jump. Like, no, it's not happening. But like, he's been out of action for like years. I know some might be like, "Oh, well, Trinity has been too," but just like. I don't know. It's just like that's just movie magic.
You could split hairs for hours if you wanted to, you know.
Yeah, and to me, that's a very interesting question. To me, put these side by side. Which movie I like more, Last Jedi or this? I probably would give Last Jedi a bit of an edge just because the Kylo Ren race scenes are great, but I don't see the Last Jedi comparisons yet, really. Other than just, is it just you depowered Neo? Is that it? Which is a lame thing.
Yeah, I haven't personally seen those. I haven't been deep in like the hashtags on the Twitter talks leading up to this film, so
Yeah.
maybe I've just been out of that. I didn't really even get that vibe watching the film. Honestly, I think when you bring it up, I can see it. Just the chosen thing being switched around, and it's two people or whatever it might be. But it didn't really affect me there. Was there another question you asked? Yeah.
No, because I was going to say it, but he just flew away like Neo. Okay, good. He's sitting back down. Taylor, because obviously we're going to move on to some of the Zion stuff. What do you think about some of these comparisons of Last Jedi? Because like I said, I haven't read into it, but I guess it's been like a theme the last week of reviewers. And but some people have like... I guess that's here's the other thing I guess I've seen too is people have been using the Last Jedi thing as like a good comparison because also there's tons of people that love the Last Jedi, right? And they feel like it's an unconventional Star Wars movie. They change some stuff up. So I think even people that dislike Last Jedi saw the positive ones were like, oh no, here we go. But I think other than like it's a sequel that isn't a cover song and like some of the chosen one stuff, I don't really find them that comparable as of yet though, as we just saw this movie a few hours ago. So maybe eventually I read some stuff. But where are you on that?
I didn't get Last Jedi vibes at all, like in a comparison way. I was getting more like Rise of Skywalker sense, like okay, and that's hence my name,
no.
a dyad in the Force. Like you have not just like one chosen one, but you have two of them, and again, that's a concept that I liked. I didn't feel like it was depowering Neo whatsoever, because he was just getting back into the groove of things. He couldn't fly right away, but yeah, he immediately was doing force push, force blocks, like all that kind of stuff,
And by the end of the movie, he's flying. By the end of the movie,
he's flying. That's like even him just doing like the force push was like eons ahead of anyone else that was using the Matrix. So I don't know why people would be freaking out. Like that's not my Neo. What'd they do?
Yeah,
like
he's at number 2 now. He was the one back.
Oh yeah. But no, and I guess before we move on too, because so Trejo's right. It's Io now, not Zion. I was gonna say too, because I forgot to mention this with Morbius. I like the stuff with Morbius. I like what you're pointing out, Kirklin, of how it was a clever way to get him back in there. I love that it was like a programming of Smith and Morpheus together because that was just like Neo's subconscious. I just thought near the back half of the movie he really disappeared. I thought literally they would have some group meetings. I'd be like, is Yaya here? Is he not? And it's like, oh yeah, he's just in the back of the scene here. And I will get into that concept of the machines coming in the real world, these like little, I don't know, whatever, metallic people. I thought that was fine, but I think that I really like the start of Morpheus in the introduction, but I felt like kind of almost like the trilogy. They kind of forgot, like, didn't have stuff for Morpheus to do, so he just kind of trailed off and was like a character around. And I feel like that's the case. I feel like almost again it would have served better if this version of Morpheus almost got killed off. And I think Yaya did great. I guess I was just expecting a lot more, especially when they got Yaya. It's like, oh, we're gonna get some like that scene that Morpheus and Agent Smith had in the first one. I thought something like that, where I don't think he never got to do that. I think he just got to be like a really fun-loving Morpheus, which was kind of strange at times. And I like some of the more meta stuff where they were showing like, oh, this is at last, and he's like, oh, did that line work this time? Did it not work? I just thought I would do the callback, and like they walk into the room and they have all the screens, so that all worked. But to me, that was more the writing of the plot more than Morpheus. So
Yeah, I agree. This was definitely a different Morpheus than what we had seen. It kind of threw me off. I liked it. I think Yaya is the guy to sell these scenes. Imagine having Lawrence Fishburne in that. It just wouldn't have worked at all. He fit, this version of Morpheus that we had in the original. But I don't think it was a bad decision to switch him around. I think there's some potential if they wanted to go a different route with him, but I'm okay. I'm okay with what it was. I think the comedy lines, for him at least, hit me more than the other ones. I mentioned in the non-spoiler section that a lot of the humor didn't hit me the best. But I liked his stuff. Again, it's just like selling those scenes. He's so great, so charismatic. Didn't realize how freaking tall he is too. Maybe Keanu's just really small, but
no,
he just he was shadowing over him, or towering over him. Keanu was the shadow in that instance, but I really, really liked it. I also really liked the usage of like the robotic sentience, like them being in the world. I really like that. I can see it may be overpowered because like especially him just like going through vents and stuff. But it allowed our heroes to progress the plot, so I'm all okay for that.
Yeah, the sentience outside, I have to. That's gonna be more on a rewatch because I don't dislike it. I don't like love it. I'm just very much in the middle of like, okay, that was a plot point. Like even like some of the machines being fine or good guys, which it was fine, but some of them were looking some of like the Wachowskis like lesser till films when they come down, they're looking like very like happy looking machines. Like, this is kind of cheesy, like this is losing some of that cool factor. But to transition into Io and Niobe, because I think Kirklin, he's been trying to get Niobe a couple times. I will say to close off the Morpheus loop that we do learn what happened to Morpheus, the original one. He died because pretty much just because he was, I would say, ignorant in a way. Like he wouldn't change his ways because he just believed like the prophecy was going to be true, and this wouldn't go this way, and he just was such a believer. And that kind of seems like why Niobe might have been a little not too warm to Neo being back or the crew believing in Neo again, because it seemed like Morpheus, much like the sequels where hey, this isn't the prophecy, no, it has to be, the Oracle said, and like no, like if it would have, the war would have ended. So it seems like he didn't like learn as much. So that's another one I need to film rewatch because I felt like I need to hear that dialogue again. It just kind of made me feel like, oh, he just was just so stubborn, he wouldn't change his ways, and maybe
just
that
kept
is
shouting, "Let's fuck!"
Yeah, let us fuck, and they're like, we're moving to Io, fuck, like so. And I guess at the end of the day, though, that's where I'm caught because it does feel like that is Morpheus in the trilogy, but I also feel like Morpheus like. You're telling me he didn't grow at all since the trilogy? So, I don't know. I'm kind of torn on that. Tay, how do you feel about Morpheus's, the OG Morpheus's story of how we lost him?
I mean, it's unfortunate. I mean, off-screen death, off-screen write-off, I guess you could say. But, again, I like this consciousness or this program of it being half Agent, half Morpheus. I don't know why I liked it, but I thought it was wacky, it was crazy, it was unorthodox. I think it was fit, and I like that it was represented and manifested with this program coming into the real world with this new technology that they had, which I really liked. I liked that new technology. I liked how they had the sentience that were kind of like on their side, and I know that's. Like for me, it was really cool seeing that in this kind of aspect, but at the same time, it's like, oh, this just reminds me of like Transformers, and I'm digging it. Like, so, I'll take that, and yeah, it was cool. It was really cool, and I was just super awesome as Morpheus. I actually really liked him. So,
Kirkland, what do you think about Morpheus's the OG's fate that we got revealed here? He didn't make it, which I think we all assumed once we saw. Yeah, it's like that guy's a goner, whatever way. My theory was wrong about them being resurrected over and over. I was wrong about that. He was just some program. But yeah, Morpheus went down with the ship per se.
I thought you were gonna be right in like the very first scene because we saw like the new version of Trinity. I'm like, oh, this is just like the same thing that happened over and over again with like different versions or whatever.
And the mirror showing them older, and I at
Yeah.
first thought like, oh, this is just showing that they've been here before, and not like they get into later the whole like DSI, like making other people making you look different to other people. But I was like, oh, I'm right on the money, and no, I was gone. Travis told you wrong.
Yeah. But yeah, with Morpheus's fate, it's funny actually. I kind of like chuckled to myself when I think it was Niobe when she's showing like the statue of
Yeah.
him, and she's like, yeah, after that happened, he was basically given like God power, not
Yeah,
not
he
God
was
power, but
vote-
like
whatever-
supreme powers, the
Yeah,
supreme
they-
chancellor of
he
whatever. I'm like,
was,
oh,
yeah.
that's bad. So what is it? It's like ultimate power corrupts ultimately, or whatever the quote is. That wasn't the case. He just kind of was set in his ways and didn't want to adapt and advance. And I was a little mixed on that. I feel like part of me thinks that it kind of discredits like the significance of the character of Morpheus. Now the version that we got in the original, in the second and the third movie, he kind of gets pushed to the wayside, but just he seems like a big driving force in what pushes Neo in that direction of becoming the one. He believes in him just ultimately pretty much more than Trinity. I would say, like, I feel like he's banking his whole life and and purpose on the fact that Neo's the one. In I think the later film, he kind of like goes back or like he maybe isn't as confident. I can't remember specifically what happens, but like his confidence gets shaken. Maybe he's wrong. Maybe the Oracle is wrong. In this instance. And then by the end, it's like, no, Neo's the one. Morpheus was right. Obviously, it was explained that he was giving like the supreme chancellor powers or whatever. But the fact that he was just like, no, the world is fine. Neo fixed it all. I feel like that explanation. It's like, oh, this character maybe wasn't as wise as maybe we once thought. So I thought that just that one line kind of brought the character down a bit. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Do you think that's sloppy writing?
As of right now, I'd say yes, but I want to rewatch it to see like how it hits and like because there's a lot to take in. But yeah, I thought for all the ways you could write off Morpheus, I think that was not the greatest. I think you could just made it he was lost in a war with the machines and he led a group of people and he fought valiantly and that's it. Not this whole like he went down with the ship sort of thing, because I think that's also just a low blow to Neo of like, yeah, this guy fully believed in you and it really fucked him. It's like, but I didn't think he was still not wrong. But yeah, like I'll have to see on a rewatch. But as of right now, I don't think it's the greatest explanation.
No, definitely. I feel like also the character of Morpheus brings a lot of baggage of just like the significance of the character. So if they don't have Lawrence Fishburne back, if they don't even want to dive into that route, it's like, hey, let's just have a quick line to explain what happened there. It could have been explained better. Maybe he just overdosed on some death sticks. I don't know if that would have been
Too much.
he
He finally got in there in the sequel. How
He
he's
died
on the balcony. Yeah, his first night in the fuck gang. He just like they took all his fluids from him.
Hour 42 of his orgy, his heart gave out. Yeah, I would have liked that. Or fucking safe word.
Yeah. And he was like, whoa.
What was the other thing you asked other than Morpheus?
Well, I'll
I
ask
can't
you that
remember.
after
Okay.
this next ad break. And we're back. So we were starting to talk about transitioning to IO, and because you a few times were starting to bring up Niobe as like your con. So you go ahead. Why about Niobe? Because this is probably the most screen time she's got in the whole series. Was this her as being the old Niobe?
Absolutely. I really like the character of Niobe. At least I think in the second one is when she's really kicking ass, like in the Matrix. The third one, she's more of just in Zion.
Big love triangle.
Big love triangle, which is not needed at all. I feel like she became, now help me out here, what was the guy's name that was like Niobe's boyfriend or whatever, and then
That's who
was
she
it Locke?
became.
Yeah. She became him, and I really didn't like her in this. Like I was shouting out like the sit down scene between her and Neo. I thought that was actually really good. I like just her being like, I didn't think I was ever gonna see you again. She touches upon the fact like I never believed in the one. I still don't really, but it's just like the way that she worded it in that scene was really great. I mentioned just the silence factor. All that stuff was great. But like, so her and Neo was good, but I felt like her and Bugs, that's her name, right? It sounds weird me saying that now. Her like that dynamic I really didn't like. I'm like, Niobe is just such a fucking bitch here. Like like this lady is like her. Like she's like basically the Niobe from like back then, you know, kind of going against the grain and taking away the orders. And I felt like Niobe kind of just forgot like what she actually had to go through. She talks about like, oh, times were different back then and we had to do these. I'm like, I feel like it's pretty much worse now. Like you of all people should know the sacrifice that this character of Bugs is actually doing, and she's doing this for the greater good, and she has these righteous cause basically, and Niobe's just like, no, you're grounded, I'm stripping away your ship and all these things. And then like all of that basically got retconned because she's like, you are grounded, you're never going back out in the space from taking away your ship. Next scene, I need volunteers. Well, I volunteer. Well, you're going anyways. It's like, why the fuck did I spend 20 minutes like worrying about if the captain's actually gonna get punished or not? Like all of that just seemed wasted in my eyes.
Well, I guess they were punished in a sense. They just snuck away and got the ship to Neo, and I think the reason she ended up going on the battle is just because like she was almost insinuating, well, like if someone's gonna have to die, it's gonna be you and your gang because you left and stuff like that. But yeah, it wasn't the greatest. I don't think I disliked it as much as you, but I don't think it. I think Niobe got a lot of screen time, and I think a lot of it wasn't needed. I think the trailers made it seem like it was gonna be like a scene or two, like a nice little cameo, and the fact that she was the main captain. Like it was fine. It served its purpose, but it's nothing I was like super invested in. Atreya Wanda Asa was Sati, the same actress. No, that was Priyanka Choppa or Priyanka Choppa, however you say it. The one that's
Piranha Champa. Is that what you said?
No, that's not what I'm saying. Priyanka Choppa or something.
Chopra or something like that.
Yeah, but she's married to Nick Jonas, so no, yeah. She is. That was not the same actress. No, I thought it was at one point, but I looked it up. But
good casting.
Yeah, good casting for the little she said. Yeah, the Niobe stuff. You guys know how I feel like with Zion IO stuff. Like it's the stuff I find the least interesting. I would say though, like yeah, she's talking about like how things are worse, but it's just like, or like I think you were talking about that, but they're not. They're not too like they are better technically, right? They're growing fruit. They have this cool like mapping mechanism where the robots can't find them anymore because they're hidden and stuff like that. So I would say it's a bit better. So I think they were just trying to play up of, hey, this is as good as it's going to get. I don't want it to get any worse. So I think they did that well enough. But yeah, most of the IO stuff I didn't need. And here's one thing, we'll talk about Bugs, which I did like everybody else. I did not give a shit about. The rest of the crew, they gave little speeches here and there and stuff. I didn't care about a single one and thought they were all expendable. Much kind of like the first movie too, where it's like, oh, there's a bunch of other side characters and I don't care about. But Taylor, what do you feel about some of the IO stuff and Niobe? She's taking charge here. She suspends Neo, suspends the crew, but again, they escape pretty easily.
Yeah, it was cool to have, again, a familiar character come back. I thought that was neat, but
yeah,
I didn't feel like there was a lot really going on for like story-wise with her, because it's like, oh yeah, okay, she's putting Neo under house arrest. Hey, she's grounding the captain and the flight crew and all that stuff. Doesn't matter. And then I feel like, okay, she reprimands them once and she reprimands them again, and like it just felt repetitive. It didn't feel like we were getting anything out of it, and yeah, she sends them on that mission. I don't have really much else to say on it aside from the fact that it just seemed repetitive and it didn't really give us anything else. I like the dialogue she had with Neo. I think that was very important, because that's kind of like our gateway into, okay, like what has happened, what was the fallout of Neo since he made that truce with the machines and ever the war ended temporarily and all that jazz. So again, I like that kind of dialogue that we had, but anything that was with her, between her and the new crew, I just felt was not doing it.
You didn't like the new crew, did you?
I wanted to, because I thought, okay, we got like some cool new characters, and I always
like Mouse 3.0. He was basically like, I'm like waiting for that guy to die.
Girl with no red
dress. With Agent Smith.
I just think that you have with this kind of world, you can really dive into these new characters, new personalities, because again, when they go into the Matrix, their avatars are so unique and how they reflect these characters. And I like that, because again, it's another way of showcasing like, hey, these characters are unique and what their personalities are and their attributes are. It's like a video game in real life. Everyone has their own custom skins, and it's a cool like reflection of you as a person. So I just feel like it's a missed opportunity to dive into those characters in this movie, and I hate that. The only one we really got to dive into a little bit was Colleen, and the other ones was like a little shafted. Where that girl was like, "Yeah, oh, like I super big into Trinity," and the other guy was like,
Yeah.
the guy locking Neo up, like, "Oh, like can you really fly?" and all that stuff. Like, I wanted to see more of that and more of their personalities, but it just seemed like they were just shoehorned into the story.
They were pretty flat characters for
Yeah.
sure.
I was gonna say they definitely shoehorned. I'll take the other route where when you said, "Oh, you want more," I wanted less, so this was just the right amount. I guess.
Well, that's how they were because it was poorly written in. Like,
Yeah.
that sucks.
So yeah, before I go on the crew, one last thing I'll say on Niobe before we leave her alone. Travis, you kind of reminded me of just like maybe her motivation for just wanting to like keep things the way they are is
Yeah.
the Sentinels weren't at their gates, you know, like they weren't literally 2 feet from like murdering everyone in Io. So that I guess that's a big difference from Zion. Like really from her perspective is like, hey, these people are risking possibly just poking the hornet's nest and then the Sentinels find us just to get Trinity back. Like maybe on paper that doesn't make the most sense. So you kind of opened my eyes there. So maybe I shouldn't be too harsh on it. I really didn't like her dialogue between Bugs. And then that's a nice transition to talk about Bugs and the rest of the crew. I'm more with Travis. I think there was possibility for me to like the crew. I really liked Bugs. I thought, first of all, the actress, I haven't seen her. I don't think I've seen her in anything, but I thought she did such a good job as this role. I loved her like Matrix character's outfit with the blue hair. Blue's best color, so I just love seeing that. That was awesome. Her action scenes were really fun, and I thought she was a good like new protagonist to follow along. You know, it's Keanu's movie, but still, like she was like I don't even know what you call her, the third protagonist. If it's Trinity, she definitely had more screen time than Trinity.
She was our character that like
Yeah.
guides into the Matrix, guides into the real world, is gonna help Trinity. So I think she's that type
Yeah.
of character.
Yeah, and I thought she did great. I want to see this actress do more things because I thought she did really good with this. And
You go watch Iron Fist now.
oh, she's in Iron Fist.
Yeah, that's where we call her Colleen.
Okay.
She was
Colleen.
Colleen
okay,
when
I was
she
confused.
She got a big fan base because she legitimately was the best part of Iron Fist. She had a big
Okay.
breakout. She was really good in that. So she's a fun actress. I
Yeah.
hope to see her in more things down the line.
Well, it's good to know that she was great in that because I thought she was great in this. So give her a MCU fitting.
There
Take
you
Colleen
go.
to the MCU, or just recast. But with the other guys and gals, I really was seeing like, okay, these guys are the new crew. I'm always down for a ragtag team, however the hell you say that. But definitely saw the similarities to the original crew. Like I said, Mouse 3.0. I felt like that was
Yeah.
like the Neo fight they called him. Like he literally just studies Neo, and he's just like so engaged there. Now, I thought they were very flat. I agree with Travis. I think I could have used less of them. Something that like ties into the crew and just the movie overall. And this might be, I don't know, maybe a hot take, but I found the consequences in this movie really pulled back from the other ones. I don't think any of like the good characters died in this movie. Am I wrong? I don't think I am
No,
because
I don't
none of the
think so.
crew died. Yeah, it was so strange. I'm expecting like Mouse to die. I'm expecting the chick that loves Trinity to die, especially near the end when they're like stuck in that car. I'm like, oh, this is it. This is where we kill off these 2D characters that I'm not attached to because they're literally just so flat. And I don't give a shit about them. But we kept them around, and why? Like, why are we keeping them around? Like, okay, I don't want them to just die because, like, just to kill someone, but. They didn't have significance to stick around. So if they're trying to build consequence and like make it threatening, I feel like you got to have at least some people die. And I thought it was strange that nobody did. Thinking back to the first Matrix, Mouse, not really a likable character. He's pretty quirky, but like he gets murked pretty early on.
Yeah.
Switch, I think is her name. She gets popped off. Like there's
Yeah,
quite
and
a
the
few
other
that
guy,
die.
too. The other guy that has the
Dozer,
long
I
pony-
think.
Dozer, but there's the other
Yeah.
guy that has the long ponytail too that dies around with Switch
Yeah,
too.
and
yeah.
I don't even remember him because he's a flat character. He's very similar to what these guys are, but these guys just stick around for some reason, and I thought that was not done the best, and that's like on the crew side. But I also just felt the consequences could have been ramped up because even when, I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but even when we get to Keanu and Trinity on the bike, great visually scenes, but I'm like. I'm not scared at all for this because Neo just has infinite mana on this barrier that he's putting up here, and it's great visually wise. You know, he's the one, so I do believe that he has these powers. But I just felt, since I'm not seeing anyone die, I'm not expecting anyone to. I don't know if you guys thought the same.
No, I agree. I think there wasn't much stakes there. And I don't think you really. I think you could have Bugs and maybe one other character, but I don't think you even needed that. Bugs was fine on her own, and just have it the Trinity, or something.
Yeah,
Yes,
in
Trinity
there.
kind of, but yeah, the Yaya, Kiana, that one. And plus, you already had Agent Smith, who was kind of like doubling as a good guy at times too. So, yeah, much like the first one, I think their side crew's just a little forgettable, So, where do you guys want to go next for this review?
I was trying to think. I feel like I completely missed something big. We touched upon the sentience, the robots. I liked the different designs that we saw in this one. Just like the blue lights. I like that they had like a civil war going after power there. I thought that was rather interesting. I feel like if anything, they would have just been like, okay, well, let's just go fuck up these humans and like take back the batteries there. I like that they actually leaned into the fact that they did hold their word. They did have peace. They did actually, we're losing power, but we're in a peace treaty, so we can't just go fuck up these humans. So what are we going to do? We're going to take the power from these robots. I like that dynamic. I thought that was fun, and that's something I didn't think we could ever see in The Matrix, just from the world that they built in the original trilogy. And I bought it. It's not like it's an unbelievable thing. I liked it because it allowed for, again, the humans to interact with the robots to just get better technologies. That's really believable. Like, just think of our world and how much we rely on artificial intelligence, algorithms, just smart computers to just help us advance. And it makes so much more sense that they're able to just get all these new technologies by working with the sentience, and them having like their own what would it be, like they're literally like sentient. Like, it's almost like an ex machina type situation where they're like, yeah, they're robots, but they have, I don't know about feelings, but they have thoughts, and they are realizing.
I don't even know a conscience, but they have their own free will. In a sense, they can
No,
choose to do what or whatnot they want to.
And just talking with the herbologist and the robot there, like the robot, when he's talking, like he seemed passionate about what they were doing, and I'm like, this is a cool side of the robots, and we never would have seen that before. So I really like that they did that, because again, it's not retconning anything for the originals, it's not copying the originals, it's building upon it, and that's what I think this movie did really well.
Yeah, wait till you try the blueberries. That's it. He was really hyped about those blueberries.
Yeah.
Taylor, where do you want to go next?
Oh man.
Or if you
What about this one?
your
What about this one? This is a little note for you, Taylor. What do you think about not seeing the Oracle?
Miss the Oracle.
Did you miss the Oracle? Did you not give a shit about her? Did we have too much about her in the
Oracle.
trilogy? Yeah.
No, I think the Oracle. I mean,
Yeah,
if we get
too
another
much.
movie, the Oracle will pop in. But I mean, I didn't. I feel like it goes hand in hand with the fact that, okay, like whatever the events are of this film, like it wasn't super. This is why I say, like what I mentioned earlier, where this movie feels more like kind of like a spin-off and not anything like super precedent and important to like the main story, where it needs to invoke like the aid of the Oracle necessarily. I feel like then you could also say whatever the Oracle's duties are is like transcended and transferred over to that new girl that's replaced her, who was the little girl from the previous movies.
Sati?
Satine.
Yes, yeah.
Satine? Was it Satine or Sati? Was that the one that
I think Sati
was brought up?
Oh,
played by
Sati. Yeah,
Chamba?
you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
So I think that's what you could interpret it that way. I have another point that I'll mention after you guys talk to the Oracle.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me. I didn't miss her. I really like. I felt like, because I feel like, again, that plays up more to the chosen one angle, and that's not what this movie's really about. It's a factor, but it's not about like one person can save the world. So I don't think there would be a need, because I don't like, if you look at the original trilogy, that to me is like a world ending. Him versus Smith was taking things over. This is just still like, obviously not a great situation, but it is better than it used to be, and it's not, I think, as heavy as could be last year or whenever the last time that all these bad things were happening, you needed the Oracle to come and be like, oh, well, you need to do this, this, and this. This one, there's still bad things happening, but they're slowly being revealed. Or even then, half the machines aren't even fighting. Like, the half the machines are not fighting, you know? So I just don't think, I don't know where you would have fit her, I guess, what my point is.
Yeah, I agree with you, Travis. I think I like that they brought her up and like mentioned like before she disappeared, she said something big was coming. I don't even remember what the line was, but I like that they didn't just not talk about her. Like even Neo
Yeah.
mentioned. I might be mistaken here, but I thought he said something like he was wanting to talk to her, or maybe it was when he was talking to Trinity. Like it got brought up, and I like that usage, but I agree with you. I don't think she was needed in this. It was never like, what's our next step? Okay, well, let's go talk to the Oracle, and she'll point us in the right direction. They didn't need that. They knew where Trinity was. As soon as he was released from the pod, he knew where Trinity was. So that's our goal for the movie, right? Is to get her back. And it's even explained further on from there where, like, the power from the one is the love that those two share. So then, okay, that's our main point here. We don't need the Oracle to spoon feed us the answer in this instance.
Spoon
Pun
feed, Nate?
pun unintended.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask, yeah. Taylor, you said you were going to take us somewhere after the Oracle. Where were you taking
Where you
us?
taking
Yeah,
us?
I got two things. First of
Back
all,
to the
like
Matrix.
Keanu Reeves just debugging himself from the Matrix and just pulling that deep throat out like was just so brutal. Like that was a long like tongue apparatus going down into his mouth. Like that was
I
just.
feel like it was shorter than the original. I should pull up a side by side. I probably won't have an
I'd
image
like
from
to
the new
get
one, but
a length on that. Actually, yeah.
I'll get you on metric or imperial on that. On that
Imperial,
schlong.
please.
Okay.
I definitely also want to say I found it interesting, like, because it seemed like the machines were kind of slowly losing their truce, obviously, and turning against the humans. But at the same time, how are the humans just like blatantly just cruising their upgraded, which I like their upgraded ship designs. But why were they just able to like move their ships through like Robot City? It seemed like they were able to get super close to certain parts. Was it just because they were like camouflaged, or were they just truced?
Well, I guess it was just a combination of like when you talk about Neo and how they got him out of there, they did say like, hey, this was a one-shot deal. That's why we can't go back and get Trinity. So I think it was a combination of them having a bunch of info on the Machine City, and also I think one of them said like they had the schematics, like one of the robots. So I guess it was just like years of, oh yeah, we've been looking into if we ever have to bust in the Machine City, this is how we do it.
Yeah, I kind of just like let it pass. I because I was thinking about that too when they're like at the resurrection chambers and they're okay. They have like a barrier around the building. They have sentinels all around. Honestly, with how many sentinels you have, throw a couple inside, like just staring at Trinity. Why not? You know, maybe like if I was head security, that's what I would do. We wouldn't have had this case, but I thought it was a little like, well, that's lucky that there's no cameras, no sensors, no sentinels in here at all.
Yeah.
Like while they're just chilling, and it's not like it was a quick process. Like they had
No.
to splice into it. So
Lots of in-plugging and de-plugging, you know.
yeah, a lot of plugging it back in, pulling it out, pull it back in. But I think I'm more on Taylor's side with that because it stood out to me where it was like, okay, but again, I'm not gonna split hairs.
Yeah, and to me, it's always been a gray area of like people coming to the pods and escaping this area because they know they get picked up, they get shot away. But it's always been like a really like they just go away and the machines don't notice and they don't investigate this all. It's just like no, they're gone. It's like
Roger.
Okay,
They're like,
yeah,
they're basically like that. Yeah.
yeah, that's why they need Neil Patrick Harris. So. Where else? Because I think I've said or I hit all the notes. I guess I'll just say because I mentioned Neil Patrick Harris. I liked him enough. I like him when he does play a bit more of a villainous role, and he's always good, the smarmy like asshole type of guy. I think like Taylor's talking about, they're like it's good. He's talking about the whole like, oh, you know, all the prices are up and it's all looking good. That stuff that it is current. I don't know if I absolutely loved it because sometimes it just feels it's hitting that like Taika Waititi from Free Guy type of route of like, oh, it's all up and I'm doing like. not that you lose stakes, but it feels a little less important. But at the same point, again, I don't think that's what this movie's about, is taking down the Matrix. What was I gonna say about him? Oh, I really liked, even though sometimes the effect wasn't the greatest, I think it was a little back and forth, was the bullet time thing of, oh, you use bullet time against us, and now it's your, biggest weakness here. And I think most of the time it looked good. There's an odd few times where it's just like, this could have done another once over, but that's bullet time, so it's like not everything can look crisp in there. So I like that idea of him constantly taking things that our heroes did and kind of using them against them.
Yeah, that scene when Neo goes to see Tiffany, which is Trinity in her bike shop, which badass that she's just like, working on bikes. That's sweet. But there was so much I don't know, pressure maybe is the right word in that scene, because like when he shoots the bullet and it's just Neo's just trying for his life to stop the bullet, and Neil Patrick Harris is just kind of dialoguing, going up closer, like he has his apple, which is a little mustache twirly, but still I was digging it. And then like right at the last second he pulls the bullet, because I don't know, like I thought, I didn't think Trinity was going to die permanently there, but like maybe she dies and then it kind of gets reset again. I didn't really know how that scene was going to end, so that was a good suspenseful moment. And since I'm talking, I thought Neil Patrick Harris was so great in this. He's such a great actor. I mostly just have experience with him in How I Met Your Mother.
Oh, that. Yeah.
How to Train Your Mother. How I Met Your Mother. Like it's such a different character, obviously, but he's just a great actor, phenomenally. And I like seeing different range of a character like that, especially when someone's done a sitcom for so long. You just kind of see them as that character. I know he was in Starship Troopers.
Oh yeah,
a little bit of a different role there again. But no, I also, for the trailers, maybe I'm just didn't really catch on. I don't know if it was clear, but I really wasn't expecting him to be like the main villain.
No, I think they played that close to the chest. I think they were trying to make it seem like Jonathan Gruff was going to be the main guy.
Yeah.
Even if he was or not Smith, it's like, oh, he has a lot of screen time. But
Yeah.
I even like little stuff like when before he did the big villain turn, he was just a therapist, and he had those bright ass blue glasses. Like just constant like reminders. Like I love just the use
Deja
of blue.
vu cat.
Yeah, Deja Vu cat. But like I love the use of blue in this movie, because it was just so much. It was like hitting me over the head. Like, no, blue is what you want. Blue's the choice. Like this is the life and stuff. And just him having those glasses. That's where it's like, okay, that's where it's like, okay, he's I think more than just a program, and like technically he kind of is, but he was much more than just a therapist to distract Neo, unfortunately. So
he's like a program that programs. That's basically what he is.
Yeah.
Skynet, the start of Skynet. Couple things I want to mention before I forget them, because I made a mental note in the movie and I'm scared I'm going to lose it. Is when Neo is having that meeting with Jonathan Groff, and like this is obviously just like when they're in like the video game like building, and they're just talking, and Neo is like going back and forth between like reality and like what's going on right now in the Matrix scene. And then as Smith is talking, you just see his mouth like kind of start to stitch together. Oh man, I think that scene just like scarred me when I was little, because like it's still such a freaky image of just like the mouth just closing. But when it was just like doing it again, it's like better CGI that they had in the 1999, whenever the first movie came out. But like it was just slowly going as he was talking. Oh man, like bone chilling. I that was such a great scene to throw in there. And then the other one I wanted to mention was, overall didn't love the fight scenes. I thought they were okay. But man, I absolutely love like the modern CGI effect when they're just like literally clashing. You see like the sonic waves, and that is so
critiques we had back then.
yeah, that is so like Dragon Ball Z fight scenes, very anime like, just like so much force clashing, happens so much, and I was eating it up every time. I didn't think it was overdone. I thought it was so good. Again, it's just like that technology that allows you to do that, because in the original ones, when they clash like that, you hear like the sonic boom, but you don't see it visually, just because they were limited in their technologies. So it was great seeing that in this.
Well, let's take probably what our final ad break is. We'll get some final notes out there, and then a rating for Matrix Resurrection. So we'll be right back. And we're back. Kirkland, you're rattling some stuff off there. Anything else from the movie or in notes you want to rattle off before we come to the close?
We mentioned the Matrix theme coming in. Every time it
Yes.
did, it was just, ooh, it tickled my fancy. I was
Even just the
loving
Warner
that.
Brothers logo being like green like that again, it's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, we're back in the Matrix. Here we go, you know.
And yeah, no, we talked about the beginning, but I really love that it just started like the exact same way as the original one, when it just like shows the Matrix and then it goes into the code and then it goes resurrections, goes in the code, and then it's this instance bugs on the phone, like,
Yeah.
oh, what happened there? It's like, oh, it could be again. I don't I forget the dialogue specifically, but you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, and I think that's fun that they are that's where meta starts. Like, oh, this is how it happens, but this isn't oh, we're watching what happens, but this isn't what happens and stuff like that. Talking about the Trinity stand-in and stuff like that, and they're like, why is the Matrix like running these codes like that, like as a buffering thing? And I really like too. It just feels like that is meta in the first movie where they are us, the viewers, they're literally there watching the first movie, like, oh, this isn't how it's supposed to go, much like we would. So, yeah, I think it was a fun, smart introduction. So,
I quite liked, again, very minor, but I liked just the actors that portrayed like the regular agents, like Agent 1 and Agent 2. There was one agent that like stood in front that I liked a lot more. He just had this like uh what do you even call him? Just
presence,
like a
aura.
thug number one face to him, where it's
Yeah.
just like, hey, that guy looks like a bad guy that was just like designed for this type of role, and he had that grouchy face so well, and he wasn't in it much, but I thought he was he fit what an agent was. I was shouting them out in the retros. I just like those guys that fit the role, and just their body language. Like as soon as they're about to catch bugs, and then she kind of disappears behind that car. She ends up being in like the key store, and the two agents just like go together. And then one looks one way, one looks the other. It's like what happens in the original trilogy, but again, it just fits that. Like if you're playing like a game and like you kind of escape from them, they just like go. Like sometimes they just walk right in front of each other and they're just like looking around, like just because that's like in their base code. It's kind of unintuitive for what a human would do, but
Yeah.
it fits up what a program is, and those details were great, and it carried over from the trilogy.
As Ben Affleck said, I agree. Taylor, anything to shut out?
Nothing that I can think of. I mean, aside from like visually, this movie was fantastic. I know it was something that I like to rave about beforehand going into this, was that the concept of the Matrix, those other films, what they were trying to do cinematically, and then combine that with the technology that we have now. I think a lot of it was just super, super cool. Like it's finally, it's awesome to finally see a movie with such an advanced concept of what they wanted to execute finally meet the technology that like suits it and how to like properly represent it on screen.
One thing, talking about things I was supposed to show at the beginning, could have been non-spoilers, was the score. I thought the score was good, not amazing, but I thought there was times where it was amazing. And one in particular, I really, really loved the score when Agent Smith and Neo had their fight in the middle. It was really good. It was like, dun, 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 dun. It was just like, it was something new. And yeah, I'm excited to listen to that. I'm excited to listen to the score again because like some of it was in the background. It just didn't boom as much as I thought, other than those classic like Matrix themes. But again, a solid score there. So
Absolutely.
well, like I said, anything else to shout now or ratings time?
Or forever hold your peace. I I love the line, or actually the scene when Neo comes out and he's kind of freaking out, so they just send him to, I forget what it's called, like the construct. It's just that white room,
Yeah.
and yeah, he was just chilling, like welcome to the crib, like, and then
Yeah.
like there, I kind of got caught because I'm like, oh yeah, this is actually just a program. Like he actually can't go to the real world. I mean, he can with that technology, but he's just chilling there. And then we get, he's a little bit more eccentric in this one versus the Lawrence Fishburne.
Yes. Just even the suits.
Morpheus, the suits, phenomenal costume
yeah.
design. He looks so poppin'. And then we get transported to the dojo. Very memorable scene. Neo's just like, what the fuck is this? No, we're not doing this right now. And yeah, beautiful fucking man. Holy shit. When he's like shirtless and like got that robe on, he is just shredded. And he's got his like martini in hand, and I just really like this character. I don't know if I like this more than the Morpheus I know and love, but I like Yaya. That probably helps a
Yeah.
lot. So he sold those scenes so well. And then we get the line of like, I don't remember if it was this scene or the other scene, but Neo's like, I still know kung fu.
It's
Drops
when
that one.
they having the big fight before he fights Agent Smith because that's his
Right,
first time he's
yeah.
kicking people's ass and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, I loved Yaya's look. We'd seen in the trailers in the dojo scene. Like, man, what a majestic guy. I think that I forgot there was something else you're gonna. Oh, I think again, kind of like we talked about the action being a little less tier. I think you look at the kung fu scene that it's Morbius and Neo
Yeah.
versus the first one. It's like that to me is the exact opposite of like, or the exact example of like, not that this scene, this movie's bad, but it does not live up to that. And I think that's mostly action in this scene or in this film, unfortunately. So
And you had the fun fact, I think it was in the first movie, how like they really went out of their way to get that specific fight choreographer that they wanted.
Yeah.
And I don't think they went that route in this one, just because the fight seems so different. I'm not saying they have to bring him back, but I think that's what stands out so much is the difference there. And it's a good thing that they went out of the way to get that original guy, because those fight scenes probably wouldn't have been as memorable as they are. And that's been what, like 21, 22
Yeah.
years later, and I
just feel
still
so,
love them.
They just feel so hard and gritty. Where this one, I'm not sure if it was the fight style or just like the way we film now, and it looks so pretty and whatnot. It lessened, had a little less of that effect and whatnot.
Yeah.
But to his life. So yeah, I'm gonna actually let Taylor Field start because I imagine he'd probably be the lowest out of the three of us. So Taylor Field, what would you, as of right now, give a final rating out of 10 for Matrix Resurrections?
I've been spending the last like 10 minutes just really pondering
Whole
in my
hour,
mind.
just
Yeah.
not
He
I
didn't even
watched
nap.
the
He was
whole
just like in
movie
his
again.
bed, like thinking about the score.
Yeah.
So to
I
clarify
keep-
for people, Matrix 1 was a 9, Matrix Reloaded was a 10, and then Revolutions was a 9.5. So we got the whole gamut here. So is it going to stay with his family or is it going to drop?
I keep going between two numbers, and
I thought you were saying 2 and
2.
something else. I was like, are you kidding me? We've seen a
No.
lot of bad movies. I can understand, but like, this is not a 2 out of 10 in my opinion.
this film is something like my rating that I'm going to put out is definitely subject to change. I
Yes.
have to rewatch this movie, and I need to properly watch it in the sense like where I can concentrate on everything I might have missed in the first viewing and just figure, okay, like how do I feel about all these different things, the nostalgia things, the Easter eggs, everything. So I feel like tentatively I want to give it like, because I did enjoy it. There's some things I wasn't expecting, and maybe that's like more so my fault, because I think a lot of things were executed like pretty cool. Like I like some of the concepts you guys were talking about. You guys definitely swayed me on certain points and cases you were making. But is it higher than some of that stuff in those original films for me? No. So I would probably go, and I feel like I'm being generous by saying an 8.5, maybe like an 8 to an 8.5. Again, that's subject to change because I just need to, like I said, rewatch it and just see how I feel about things I might have missed and just reaffirm certain things, especially after discussing with you guys. I feel like doing another watching of the film might help me be more confident on where I stand with it. But
Well-
it's a good movie.
Well, and even then, like, I know there's like the Matrix sequels when we did the retros, we were like, oh, we haven't seen these in the longest time. We had still seen them though, right? Like we had seen these movies multiple times throughout the years, especially the first Matrix. So yeah, I think this one is warranted of a watch. So Taylor, somewhere between an 8 and 8.5. I'll follow up because that's exactly where I was. I was actually a little lower. I was between a 7.5 and an 8. I think after we've talked about it, I'm leaning more towards the 8. I definitely is my favorite sequel to. I think I'm much like Taylor. This is subject to the change either way, going higher or lower. But yeah, I really like some of the concepts they're going here, some of the themes. I liked how they tackle some of the chosen stuff. I really liked the Neo Trinity things. I loved all the meta. Like the first act, I really, really enjoy. I think that's probably the highlight of the film for me because I just love how they play with expectations. There's some character stuff of like that I liked with Morpheus and Agent Smith. There's some that I feel uneasy, and then you have Bugs, which I liked. But again, I feel like some of the action doesn't completely deliver. I don't actually think too. We talked about score. I wish they had a bit more of a banger soundtrack too. We talked about White Rabbit, but I feel like the old movies had such a a feel, and they didn't have that. And again, like I said, some of the side characters, even Morpheus, I feel kind of not were let down, but weren't fully utilized, at least in my opinion. So yeah, an 8 out of 10. We'll talk to me in a year and we'll see, because I do plan on this because Emily didn't see it because I saw it at the theater, so I'll probably watch it again this weekend for Christmas weekend. But I do plan on watching it a couple more times, and I think that's my biggest thing is I could say that for myself that I go, oh, I could watch Matrix 1 and not have to watch the other two. We talk about there's a completionist with all of us where it's like, oh, okay, sometimes I watch a movie and I just got to watch them all because that's the series. Matrix, I could easily watch one and then stop. I honestly would watch Matrix, and so far how I feel about this one, would watch this one. I don't know if I need to watch 2 and 3 because I've seen them already. I know the stories, but this to me had a better pacing, a much more enjoyable experience overall than those other 2 sequels. So as of right now, 8 out of 10. Kirklin Patson, where are you on Matrix Resurrections?
Well, if all of a sudden, it's meta to just be like, this is my review for now, subject to change, and then here I am still getting shit from my Dune DLC review, but nonetheless, no, I was definitely bouncing while I was watching the movie between a 7.5 and 8.5. There were scenes when I'm like, probably Niobe stuff, where I'm like, God, what are we doing here? I'm not loving this at all. And just some other, maybe some cheesy lines I didn't really eat well, digest well in the movie. Like, they just weren't hitting that great, so maybe that's where I was more in the 7.5 route. But I agree with a lot that Travis said in his little review roundup at the end here. Is just like the first act was 10 out of 10 in my eyes. Like that was such a standout. It was so well.
It's a fun roller coaster. It has emotion, but it was
so
just,
much.
It
Yeah,
was a good time. Yeah.
and like, I feel like we all kind of knew that we were going to get to the point where Neo's like unplugged again, takes the red pill, but like just the journey of us getting there was just so fun, and it was so great again, and it captured the magic that the first movie had. White Rabbit was such a great song choice in the trailer. I wasn't expecting to get it in the movie, so when we did, I was like, oh, this is fitting.
Yeah.
It's not even like it's a bad thing that they showed it in the trailer, because
I like when they do that.
yeah, like you could argue of like, oh well, it would have been more surprising and better, if in the movie, but it fit for both situations. It was so great. But again, Niobe stuff I didn't love. The action sequences could have been better. Something that really stood out, specifically in the first one, I'm sure it was in the later films too, was just like the cinematography was just so standouty in the first movie specifically, of just like maybe we had a camera screen, like we're seeing it through like a closed circuit television, and then it just goes into the scene, or maybe it's like a different angle entering. I didn't get too many standout moments from that. Again, maybe that's something where I'll catch more on multiple rewatches. There was one really great shot when it's when Neo finally takes the red pill, and just the perspective of Yaya holding the 2 pills. Neo like goes in to reach it, and the way that the camera's showing it looks like he's about to grab the blue pill, but then it like focuses and he has the one in the back. Like those type of shots, I could name probably like 6 from the first movie, and then that's the only one that I can really pinpoint in this movie. So, could have been better. I'm not saying it's bad, but
Plus, again, only seen this one once too, right? So
exactly.
Later on
exactly.
in the future, yeah.
Yeah, so that stuff was good, and just I gotta tip my hat to them that they did such a good job at just adding and introducing new concepts to what Matrix was, and it was already an established thing. They could have just went the route of, oh, nostalgia, you guys love these scenes, we're doing this again,
Like
but they didn't.
Time thing, like
No,
yeah.
Well, they remember when it's probably when White Rabbit was playing, and Neo's just like living his day by days, and he's like in the shower doing it.
Yeah, that was good. And they had and that's what I love too in that Sanford show, when he's just like, what does Matrix mean? Oh, it's a mind fuck. And then one guy's like, what does Matrix mean to you? It's like, oh, it's guns. It's like, oh, lots of guns.
Yeah.
And it's like Keanu scene. And it's like what we talked about in the original Matrix, where like this trilogy, especially the first one more so, dances between that world of like heady, smart, very psychological sci-fi to dude, bro, fucking awesome, kicking machines, guns, everything. And that's why I love that scene with them talking about what the next video game is going to be, and they're talking about like what does Matrix mean to them, and they all have a different definition. And that's where it's like, yeah, very much like Matrix. That even more, I feel like you look like some of our rankings, like you look at Taylor or Atreyo, like Taylor's favorite one is Reloaded, and he really liked those sequels. Atreyo's had 3 at number 1, where you and me are firmly in the like Matrix 1 is the masterpiece, and you're going, that's where I think that was very cool seeing all that go down. And you when you're talking about the reviews and whatnot, me, Taylor, and Dylan, we just knew Dune was a 10 out of 10. The fact that
well, then maybe I'll make the argument that I know this movie is I think I'm gonna go 8.25. So, you know, in the middle of 8 and 8.5. Like I said, I was bouncing 7.5 and 8.5. I think there's just too many things that I didn't love that I can't give it that 8.5. Like the fight scenes could have been more polished. And just the humor didn't hit me as well. If it hit me like all the way, I think I could easily see myself giving this an 8.5. But I can't discredit what the first act had. Like that was phenomenal. So I think that immediately made it to an 8 just for that reason alone. And then the added like new concepts and stuff like gives it that extra bump. But yeah, 8.25. I thought it was phenomenal. And yeah, I know. I'm so glad that this came out. It's 2021. We've done Spidey. We've done so many weird reviews this year. Dexter, and it's insane that we're reviewing Matrix right now. Look at our background. We got the Matrix code going. Taylor Field has a question.
Did you guys enjoy the end credit scene?
There's an end credit scene?
Mm-hmm.
No, I didn't.
I did not stay for an end credit scene.
Oh my god.
Are you
What is it?
Are you fucking with us?
I'm being 110% genuine. There's an end credit scene.
Oh
Well,
no!
describe
what
it.
was it? Yeah, tell us.
It was just I didn't know if it was supposed to be like a joke or if it was serious, but it goes like the dev team at the video game company where Neo was or like Keanu Reeves works at, and they're talking about like the next big thing, like cat videos or something like that. And I wasn't sure if it was supposed to be like jokingly or what they were insinuating.
It's probably joking, but like leaving the door cracked a little bit. Like, hey, if someone wants to throw a lot of money at us, we could probably make another one, but probably just a joke. Travis Snell, what do you think? He's probably watching it right now.
No, I'm trying to read it and so I'm trying to find into and stuff like that. Cause so I'm trying to see what post-grad CS, face reality games are dead. One guy declares narrative dead. Media is nothing but neutral trigger response and viral conditioning, another person says. Then the first guy hits the colleague with a pitch, cat videos. We need to make the series of videos called the Catrix. Yeah, no, I think that is just a joke and honestly not a very good one. I'll have to see the actual scene. It's on HBO Max, so I will rewatch it. Like I said, I'm rewatching it this weekend, but that doesn't sound like the greatest joke. And I feel like they should have hit some like number 5 sequel joke stuff, not so much the Catrix, but that's fine. And I do love I just love all the shots at Warner Brothers, especially the past few years. Like I'm sure they don't think that, but how they've just kind of been a shitty company. And I think they just must think it's funny, but us on the outside, just like, yeah, this really works with the narrative you guys have been putting forward these past few years. So, but yeah, well, we did it. Matrix Resurrections is in the books. The next time you hear from us, we'll be reviewing Dexter, which is talking about another thing that's come back. But yeah, let us know whether it's on YouTube, the Discord, Twitter, Facebook, what you thought of it. Tell us some theories too, because that's gonna be the funnest thing. Matrix, things we may have missed, things you liked, things you didn't, and yeah, a big thank you to everyone that tuned in the review. And if this is the last time you hear from us, we promise you it won't be boring. And a happy New Year and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
See you later.